Alright, so in this video, I'm going to write or create a password manager in Python. And this is not going to be one of that videos where I'm going to just time lapse me writing code and finally show you the output. I've done that before in some of my videos, but in this video, I would like to take a different approach. Basically, I just want to explain to you guys more clearly what I'm doing. And there will be some time lapses, I don't know, but I'll do my best to actually, you know, explain you what I'm actually doing at that particular moment. So let's get started. Let me switch to my screen here. Okay, so there you go. I have written some outline like this in order to help me get started. Now, first of all, this is going to be a command line interface application. Basically, you can convert it to GUI if you wish, but me personally, I like CLI applications. I prefer CLI over GUI any day. So that's why it's going to be command line interface, and it's also going to be a lot less work, because if you want to convert it into GUI, you would actually have to use GUI frameworks, and it's basically going to be a little more work basically compared to CLI. And the basic concept is that you take a master password. A master password is basically the only password you would need to remember. You would know this if you have already used a password manager in the past. Basically, you have a master password, and using that master password, you can access all your other passwords on your password manager. So basically, you have to remember this master password, or else you will not be able to decrypt all your other passwords or all your other entries in the password manager. So basically, you have to take the master password, you have to validate if it's correct, and you have to show or save new entries into the password manager. So obviously, the place where we are going to save these passwords and these entries is going to be a database. So we'll be using MariaDB or MariaDB. I don't know how to spell it, but anyway. And then another feature that we want to include is we want to automatically copy a password to clipboard. So since this is a command line interface, you don't want to be actually displaying or printing or outputting the actual plain text password onto the terminal, because yeah, that doesn't seem like a very secure or a very safe way of doing things. So the only option that we have left here is to actually not display a plain text password on the terminal, but instead copy it to the clipboard so that the user can paste it on the website or wherever he wants to. So that's one thing. And then we also want to include a feature to generate a random password, so that the user can generate a random password, and set it as a password for, whatever the website he is using. So yep, that's it. And then coming to the implementation, we have basically three main features. The first one, or the three main functionalities. The first one is configuring, where you have to actually create a master password and configure all that, and then you add new entries to save new passwords into the password manager, and then you can get entries, like for example, if you want to retrieve a particular password from your password manager. So the first step is obviously to configure it, where you'll have to actually ask the user for the master password, input it from them, and then you'll also have to generate a device secret. A device secret is basically going to be a randomly generated string which is generated by the program, and this is basically used as a salt. So if you don't know what's meant by a salt, just keep watching. I'll try to explain it as much as I can. And then you basically combine the master password and the device secret. When I say combine, I don't mean literally concatenating them together. What I mean basically is, you can see that we are trying to pass it into a hashing function, or in this case, it's called a password based key derivation function, PBKDF. So basically, what this function does is it takes a password as an input, and then it generates a key for a cryptographic function, for example, AES256 as an output. So what we're going to do is we're going to pass the master password as the input to the PBKDF function, the password based key derivation function, and we're also going to give this device secret as a salt to the function. So basically, what this does is it protects your key, your cryptographic key, from dictionary attacks and rainbow attacks, because we are adding a randomly generated device secret which is random, and we are basically adding this to the master password and then hashing it or applying the pbkdf function, which generates a unique cryptographic key, which will be technically impossible to crack using dictionary attacks or rainbow table attacks. So that's what we are trying to do. And the algorithm we are going to use to actually encrypt the password with the generated key is AES 256. So in order to do this, we obviously need a key which is of 256 bits or 32 bytes in size. So we are going to generate a key of 32 bytes using the pbkdf function. And then this generated key is basically called as the master key. This is just for our reference. You don't have to call it master key. You can call it whatever you want. And then this master key is actually the one that is used to encrypt or decrypt the new entries in the password manager. All right, so that's all about configuring and then adding new entries. So basically, in order to add a new entry, first you have to ask for a master password, because we need this master password in order to compute the master key, which is actually used to encrypt or decrypt the actual stuff inside the password manager. So you first ask for the master password, and then you get the device secret, which is generated and saved in the database locally. So then you basically pass this device secret and the master password to that hashing function or the pbkdf function, which generates the master key, and using this master key you can encrypt stuff. That's the idea. And then once you encrypt it, you can just simply save it into the database. Perfect. And that's about adding new entries. And finally, getting entries, or if you want to extract data from your password manager, this is what you have to do. First of all, you have to input the field that you want to search for. For example, if you want to get all the entries for a particular site, for example, let's say you want to get all the entries for facebook.com, then you would enter the site name as Facebook or the site URL as facebook.com, something like that. Or if you want to get all the results based on the email, you can just give an email and search based on that email. And similarly, you can do it for a username as well. So you basically get the input field that you want to search for, and then you can display all the entries that match the search. And the password is actually hidden by default because we don't want to show that password by default. We want to keep it hidden. But if the user actually chooses to get the password, then he will be using a flag like, let's say, a -p flag. He'll be specifying that. And if he specifies this -p flag, it means that the user actually wants to access the password. In that case, what we want to do is we want to ask for master password, because in order to display the actual password, we need to first decrypt it with the master key. So you basically get the master password the same way you compute the master key, and then you decrypt the password, and then you don't display it to the terminal. As I said, we don't want to do that. Instead, we will actually copy it to the clipboard. Perfect. So that's about how you can get an entry from the password manager. So yeah, I guess that's it. That's the whole outline or the implementation features that I've written. So we will be writing a password manager based on this thing. Let's get started. So the first thing, we'll start with configure. So let me go ahead, and I've already created source directory. I'm going to create a new file, and I'm going to call it config.py. The first step in configuring would be to create a database and then create the necessary tables inside that database. So I will create a new file, and I'll actually create a new folder, and I'll call it utils. And inside this utils folder, I'll create a new file, and I'll call it dbconfig.py. And inside this dbconfig.py, I will include all the logic that is required to actually connect to the database. Okay, so first of all, I'll import the MySQL connector in order to actually connect to the MySQL database. And then I'll create a function, let's say dbconfig. And inside this function, I will include a try block. And inside the try block, I will use the mysql.connector.connect function. And here I will specify the actual host, which is going to be my local host. Up. And then I'll also specify the user, which is going to be PM, which stands for password manager. And then what else? The password. And I'll put the password as password. So basically, what this is going to do is it's going to connect to the database, which is hosted on the local host with the by using credentials PM and the password as password. Oh, actually, this has to be PASSWD and not password. Okay, I also have to handle the exception if in case the connection to the database fails. So I'm going to use a library called rich Python. So basically, this is a way to display stuff onto your terminal in a very rich way. It's a wonderful library. I suggest you to check it out. A very good library to visualize your output in a better way on the terminal. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to import all the requirements. And then I'm going to say something like this. So basically what this is going to do is it's going to print out the error message with the traceback, and it's going to show it in a more formatted, in a more well formatted way, I would say. So yep, that's about it, and that's all about the dbconfig.py. We're basically going to create a database object, and then also we have to return it. So I'm going to go to the end of the function and I'm going to return that database object. So now we can call this function, and then we can get the database object, and then we can perform stuff with this database object. That's the idea of it, right? So that's about it, and come back to the config.py. And now comes the first task, which is to actually create the database. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so first let me go ahead and import the dbconfig function. So from utils.dbconfig import dbconfig. Perfect. Now I will just go ahead and say db is equal to dbconfig. So I'm basically getting that database function, the database object, I mean, and then I will create a cursor, and now we can execute queries with this cursor. Okay, so this is the query to create the database. It's create database followed by the database name, and we're going to name the database as PM, which stands for password manager, right? And then I'm also including it in a try except block like this, so that we get to handle the exception in a better way. And also, if you're wondering what this print C function is, you can see in the import statement, we are actually importing the print function from the rich library, and we are calling it as print C. So basically, using this print C function, we can print stuff to the terminal with colors. We can modify them, we can format them, we can make the text bold, italic. So we can basically customize the text that we are printing to the terminal using this rich module. So yep, that's what I'm doing right there. All right, database created. Now it's time to create the table. So we basically want two tables in our database. So the first table is used to store the hash of the master password. So basically, when the user enters the master password, we'll have to validate if that master password is correct or not. So we have to actually hash the master password first, and then we have to store it. We don't want to store the plain text master password because that's not secure, and it's a terrible practice. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a table which will store the hash of the master password, and also it's going to store the randomly generated device secret. That's the only entry that's going to be in this table. So that's about the first table. And the second table is actually the table where we will be inserting the new rows, the new entries that the user enters into the password manager. So we are calling the first table as secrets, and you can see the fields. The first field is the master key hash. As the name suggests, it stores the hash of the master key, and the second field is the device secret. Now we have not yet generated the device secret, or we are not yet computed the hash of the master key, but as I said, we're only just creating the tables that are necessary. And similarly, we'll create another table and call it entries. And this is the table that actually contains the entries. So you can see the fields. It will have a site name, site URL, email, username, and the password. And when I say password, it's going to be an encrypted password and not a plain text password. All right, so that's it. Those are the two tables that we need, and we have created both of them. Okay, so the final step is to input the master password and then compute the hash of it, and then generate a device secret and add these both into the secrets table. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'll start an infinite while loop, and I'll say master password is equal to getPass. So getPass is basically the function using which you can input a password in a Python program. It doesn't display the password as you're typing it. It just keeps it hidden. That's the whole purpose of it. So I'm going to ask the user for a master password. There you go. And we'll also ask the user to re-enter the master password, so that we know for sure that he's not mistyping it. And we also want to make sure that it is not an empty string. And if these two conditions are satisfied, we can just break out of the while loop, or else we'll just ask the user to try again. So I'm using the hashclip library to create a SHA-256 hash. I'm basically first converting it into bytes, and I'm going to pass it into the SHA-256 function. I can't speak. And then I'm creating the hex digest of it. And that's it. That's going to be our hashed master password. And now it's time to generate the device secret. So I'm going to go ahead and say ds is equal to generate device secret. And let's go ahead and define this function. Def generate secret, device secret. And inside this function, we're actually going to generate a string that is composed of uppercase characters and digits with a particular length. And in this case, we'll just simply put the length as 10 characters long. So that's it. Perfect. The device secret is now generated. And the next step is to insert the master password, I mean the hashed master password and the device secret into the database, into the entries table. Sorry, not the entries table, actually into the secrets table. All right, so this is the query in order to insert those into the database. I'm saying insert into pm.secrets. PM is the database name and secrets is the table name. And the schema is master key hash and device secret. And I'm basically inserting two values, which are hashed master password and the device secret. And I'm executing it and then I'm committing the database. And that's how you actually insert the values into the table. Perfect. We are now done. And I'm also finally closing the database object. And that's it. Now we will go ahead and simply call that config function. And that should be it. So let's go ahead and say Python config.py. Oh, and we got an error right away. So this is what I'm talking about. You see how well formatted this error message is there, right? Because, yep, this is just, it looks beautiful to me. It's easier to understand where the error is coming from because it shows you the traceback. The rich module actually does this, and that's why I'm using it. So anyway, coming back to the error. So basically we're getting an error which says the database PM already exists. So yep, that is actually my fault. I've actually tested it before and I've forgotten to delete that database, and that's why it's throwing that error. So let me go ahead and quickly go to MySQL user root. Oops, I'm gonna run that as sudo. There you go, we are in, and I'm going to use the, actually I'm going to go ahead and drop the PM database, and there you go, we are done. Okay, so let's go ahead and run that again. Oh, there you go. It says database PM created, table secrets created, table entries created, and now it's asking for the master password. So let me enter the master password, some test password, something like that. It's going to ask me to retype. What if I retype it wrongly? Oh, okay, something is definitely wrong there, I guess. I'm pretty sure I retyped it wrong. So that means oh, this is actually, oh, I actually have to check if mp equal to, oh, this is actually a logical mistake. I'm going to go ahead and actually I have to go back to MySQL and drop that database PM again. Okay, so let me try it again. So it's asking me for a master password. Let me enter a master password. It's asking me to retype. Let me retype it intentionally wrong, and if I hit enter, there you go, it says please try again. Okay, that works. So I'm going to enter my master password again, retype it, and there you go. It says generated hash of master password, device secret generated, added them to the database, configuration done. Let's actually cross check it. Go to the MySQL. I'm going to log into my MySQL prompt, and I'm going to say select star from pm.secrets. And there you go. That's the entry. We have the master key hash and the device secret both stored in the table. Perfect. So that's all about configuring. Config.py is done. And what's the next thing? The next thing is to create a functionality to add new entries. So let me go ahead and I'm going to create a new file in utils, and I'm going to name it as add.py. And basically inside this program, what we're going to do is we're going to write functionality to actually add new entries into the password manager. So the first step would be to input the password, and I'm not talking about the master password. Basically, when the user wants to add a new entry, what he does is he specifies the site name, site URL, email, and username, but we don't want him to specify the password in the command line arguments. That is just not safe. So what we want to do is when the user, wants to add a new entry, he will specify site name, site URL, email, and username. And then when he hits enter, or when he runs that script, it's going to dynamically ask for the password using a password prompt, so that it's a lot safer that way. So the first step would be to actually get that password. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll say password equal to get pass, and I'm going to ask the user for the password. And I also have to go ahead and import get pass. There you go. So first we get the password of the newly added entry. And then in order to actually encrypt this password and save it into the database, we also obviously need the master key. And how do we derive the master key? We derive it from the master password and the device secret. So we need to input the master password from the user. And actually, we're not going to input the master password in this program because we're already getting it as a functional parameter from wherever this function is being called. MP here denotes master password, DS here denotes the device secret. So we already have the master password and the device secret. So the next step would be to actually compute this master key using this master password and device secret. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new function called compute master key. And we're going to pass master password and the device secret as the parameters, and I'm going to call it as MK, which stands for master key. So we'll go ahead and create a function for this, and inside here we'll write the logic in order to actually compute the master key from the master password and the device secret. Okay, so this is the logic. I'll quickly explain it to you. First of all, we are just encoding the master password and we are saving it as password. And then we are getting the salt. In this case, we already know the salt is nothing but the device secret. So we're going to encode the device secret and save it as salt. And then we are using the PyCryptodome module, which has the pbkdf2 function, which is actually the function that we are going to use in order to derive a cryptographically strong key from a password and a random salt. So I'm going to use the pbkdf2 function, and I'm going to pass the password, which is nothing but the master password, and then the salt, which is nothing but the device secret. And 32 is basically the length of the key which we want to generate. So 32 bytes, which means 256 bits, which is an appropriate key length for the AES 256 algorithm that we are going to use. And this is basically the number of rounds. It basically makes the algorithm more secure. And then the hash function that we want to use is SHA-5FOL. And this is going to output a 32 byte length key. And then we are basically just returning it. And now in MK, we have the key that we will be using to encrypt the password. Now, in order to actually encrypt it, as I said, we are going to use the AES 256, and I already have a AES utility script that I've already written, which is on my GitHub. I'm going to quickly go to that, and where is it? There you go. This is the AES utility that I've written with PyCryptodome module. So I'm basically going to reuse this script in order to encrypt and decrypt with AES 256. So I'm going to go ahead and import utils.aes util, and then I'll just go ahead and encrypt it. Encrypt, and I'm going to give the key as master key. The source is basically the password, and the key type is in bytes. And that should give you the encrypted password in base64 encoded format. All that encryption and decryption logic is written in this aesutil.py. Perfect. Now we have encrypted the password, and we can now save it or add it into the database. And done. I'm inserting the new entry into the table entries with these field names, and I'm committing the database. That's it. The entry is now successfully added. Okay, so the logic to add a new entry is done. What next? It's actually to get the entry or to retrieve or extract the results or entries from the password manager. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to create a new one, and I'm going to call it as retrieve.py. Because the first thing we need connection to the database here. So I'm going to import the db config here, and I'm going to create a new database object. So the parameters that I've given to this function are MP, master password, DS, which is device secret, and then search, which contains the search fields that are inputted by the user that we want to search in the database. And then finally, we have decrypt password, which defaults to false. So basically, if the user wants to actually extract or get access to the password, he will specify it with the -p flag to the program. And in that case, if he specifies the -p flag, this will be true. And if this is true, then it means that we actually have to decrypt the password and copy it to the clipboard. But by default, as I said, it will be false. So the task here is to get these search fields and search it in the database. So in order to do that, we need to actually first form a query that we want to execute in the database. So I'll just say query is equal to an empty string. And there are two cases here. The first case is if the user doesn't give any search fields, if the user doesn't specify any search field like the site name, URL, etc. In that case, if he doesn't specify any search fields, then what we want to do is we want to extract or display all the entries in the table. Obviously, the password will be hidden. We are just going to display all the entries in the table. And in the second case, the user actually specifies a search field. Let's say, for example, he specifies a site name or email, username, something like that. In that case, we actually have to consider that search field and we have to search in the database, taking this search field into consideration. For example, if he searches for a particular site name, we have to search in the database and we have to retrieve all the entries whose site name is equal to the site name that is inputted by the user. Is it clear? I hope it is. So first case is if the user doesn't specify any search field. In that case, it's going to be, the length of the search field is going to be 0. And in that case, the query is just going to be select star from pm.entries. So we're basically going to get all the entries without any conditions. Or else, if the user actually specified a search field, we want to include it in the query. So we'll do something like select star from pm.entries, and I'll say where, and then I'll say for I in search, query is equal to query plus, and I'm going to do something like this. So if you're wondering what the hell this does, we're basically first initializing the query as select star from pm entries where, and then for each search value, we are adding a condition which says the field name is equal to the value. So search is basically going to be a dictionary. So yeah, that's how we are actually adding or inserting the conditions into the query. And finally, when we are done with this for loop, we will have an additional and at the end like this. So we need to actually eliminate it, or else we'll get an SQL syntax error. So in order to do that, I will just say query is equal to query of, I'll just cut off the last 5 characters from the end, which will remove the and the 2 spaces. Perfect. That will do it. Okay, now I'll just go ahead and cursor.execute query, which will execute the query, and we're going to get the results. Gonna say cursor.fetch all, which is going to fetch all the results, and it's going to save it in a list. And if there are no results, we'll just say no results found for the search. And then I'll write a condition something like this. Basically, I'm checking if the decrypted password is true and if the length of result is greater than 1. It means that the search had multiple results and the user also wants to display, or in other words, copy the password to the clipboard, but that wouldn't be possible if the number of results is greater than 1, because if it's greater than 1, it means there are multiple passwords in the search results and we can't copy all of them to clipboard. So we have to indicate to the user that this is happening. So that is a condition. And then in the second condition, I've also said if the decrypt password is false, which means if the user doesn't want to access the password. If that is the case, I'm going to create a table. So table is basically an element from the rich module. So it's going to basically display the information in a tabular format, which is in a well-structured format. So I'm basically creating a table with the column site name, URL, email, username, and password. And as you can guess, it's basically to display all the results for the search that the user has performed. So I've created all the columns, and now I have to actually add the rows. And for the rows, I will just go ahead and I'll say for I in results table.addRow, I'll say I of 0, which is the first field, I of 1, which is the second field, I of 2, which is the third field, I of 3, and the final field is going to be the password. And obviously we do not want to display the password. We don't even want to display the encrypted password. So we'll just give it a string, something like hidden. There you go. Finally, we'll print that table and we will return it. Okay, so that's the first condition. But what if the number of results is equal to 1 and if the decrypt password is equal to true? And for that, I will write another condition and I'll say if len of results equal to 1, which means there is only exactly one output or one result for the performed search. And if decrypt password is true, which means if the user wants to access or copy the password to the clipboard, then it means that we can actually copy the password to the clipboard. So in order to copy the password to the clipboard, obviously we'll have to first decrypt it. And in order to decrypt it, we need the master key. And in order to get the master key, we need the master password and the device secret, which we already have as the parameters to this function. So we'll go ahead and actually compute the master key. So I'm going to go back to my add.py and I've written that compute master key function. I'm going to go ahead and copy this into my retrieve.py and make sure I get all the dependencies right as well. I'm going to copy all the dependencies here and I'm going to paste them all here. And that's it. Now I have the function compute master key and I'll just call it. I'll say mk is equal to compute master key and I'll pass the master password and the device secret to it. And now we have the master key. Perfect. Now that we have the master key, we'll go ahead and decrypt the password. And in order to decrypt it, we need the AES utility. So I'll go ahead and import it. I'll say import utils.aes util. And here I'll say decrypted is equal to utils.aes util.decrypt. And I'm going to give the key as master key. Source is basically going to be the password, which is going to be the result of 0 of 4. And then the key type is bytes. There you go. Now we finally have the decrypted password and we can now just go ahead and copy it to the clipboard. So I'm using the paperclip module to copy the decrypted password. I'm first decoding it and then copying it to the clipboard using the paperclip.copy method. And then I'm printing password copied to clipboard. Perfect. That's it. Oh, and also finally, I also have to make sure that I close that database object and also import paperclip. Okay, that's it. We are like 95% done with this project. We have implemented the configuration part, we have implemented the adding part, we have implemented the retrieving part, and finally we have to write the driver code, the main code that combines all these functionalities. And this is actually the code or the script that the user interacts with. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to create a new file in the src directory and I'm going to call it as pm.py. First, I'll go ahead and import argparse right away because we are going to heavily depend upon command line arguments and parsing those command line arguments. So argparse is a wonderful utility which allows you to do that. So basically, these are the options that I've included for my program. You can see the first argument is the option. This actually contains the action that the user wants to perform, which is either to add or extract or generate. Now that I realize I've not written the logic for generating it, let me quickly go ahead and write that generate.py. It's basically a simple logic. I'm using the similar kind of thing that I've used to generate the device secret. I'm basically using the random and the string module to generate a string of a certain length. And in this case, I'm also including the all the ASCII letters, both uppercase and lowercase, the digits and the punctuation or the special characters. And that's it. That's basically the whole of the generate functionality. It's just 5 lines. That's it. Okay, let's come back to the driver code pm.py, and here let's talk about the arguments. The first argument specifies which action the user wants to perform, which is either going to be add, to add new entries, or to extract, which is to extract entries, or to generate a password. And then the second one is -s or --name. This is basically going to hold the site name, and similarly -u or --url, which is site URL, and then email, and then username, which is specified by -l or --login, and then --length will specify the length of the password that you want to generate if you are actually trying to generate a password. And that's it. And finally, the most important argument is -c or --copy, which is basically the user's way of saying that he wants to copy the password to the clipboard. And I just realized that I was referring to this as the -p argument, but it makes more sense to use -c instead of -p. So if -c is included, it means that we will have to copy the password into the clipboard. The rest of the code for this driver code is actually going to be very self-explanatory, so I don't think it needs much explanation. So I'm just going to paste it like that, And basically I'm just taking those command line arguments and I'm checking what the option is, and if the option is add, then I'm going to go ahead and call the add entry function. And yeah, you get the point. I'm basically combining all these functionalities together using this driver code, and also this is the code that the user will be interacting with to provide the inputs, and he will get the outputs with this code. Okay, I guess that's it. That's the whole project completed right there. But I'm not sure if this will this will run without any issues. I mean, I've already written this whole project and I have it right there on my vertical monitor, on my second monitor, but I don't know if I've made any mistakes copying it. So actually, let's go ahead and check that out. First of all, I'm going to go to my MariaDB console and I'm going to go ahead and drop that database, drop database PM, because we want to start from fresh, and that's it. So the first step is to run config.py, and we want to choose a master password. I choose master password, and there you go, configuration is done. So now we should be able to use the pm.py. So if I say python pm.py, and if I want to add an entry, I will say add, and then we want to add an entry. Let me make this full screen. So in order to add an entry, I will specify the site name. For example, let's say Facebook, and then site URL -u or -- URL. Anything, it doesn't matter. I'll just use -u, and then I'll say the site URL is facebook.com, and then we would need an email. So I'll say -e, and I'll say me@facebook.com. I don't know, something like that. And then -l in order to specify the username or the login name, and I'll just say FB user, and that's it. If I hit enter, oh, okay, get pass is not defined. It's not defined in pm.py. Let me go ahead, and seems like I missed importing all the necessary modules in the pm.py. So okay, let me go ahead and try again. Oh, there you go. It did not give any error. First of all, it's going to ask me for the master password. Let me enter the master password. What if I enter a wrong master password? There you go. It's just going to go ahead and say wrong, just like that. Okay, let's try. This time I'll give the correct master password. And now it's going to ask me for the password. The first time it asked me for the master password, and now it's asking me the password that I want to add, which means the password for facebook.com in this case, which I want to save. So I will just give a password. Okay, print C is not defined. Okay, it seems like I messed up with the import statement. Let me go ahead and fix that. Add.py, copy paste that. Okay, let's go ahead and try that again. Master password. Okay. Oh, there you go. Added entry. It says the entry is added. So now that I've added the entry, let me try to extract the entry. So if I say python pm.py, actually let me try to add another entry actually. Let's say take Raj. The site URL would be techraj156.com, and let's give some email. Let's say teja@me.com, something like that. I don't know. And the login, let's say tejas1. Okay, it's asking me for the password, my sample password, something like that. There you go, entry is added. Okay, so now we have added 2 new entries to the password manager. Let me go ahead and use the extract or retrieve feature. So I'll just say extract, or I can just say E, and if I don't specify any search field, it should technically retrieve all the entries in the database. So let's see. If I hit enter, it's going to ask me master password. Oops, I entered it wrong. Let me try it again. There you go. These are all the entries, and it displayed all the entries because I did not specify any search field to search for. That's why it has displayed all the entries. Now, if I go ahead and search for the site name TechRaj by using the -s flag, let's see if it works. Master password. Okay, there you go. It only gave the result for the site name TechRaj. Perfect. Okay, now let's go ahead and use the dash dash copy argument in order to actually copy that password to the clipboard. So it asks for the... Oops, I just realized that you can't see the screen because of my webcam. So let me clear the screen again. And okay, let's try again. Basically, I'm going to use the dash dash copy argument in order to actually copy the password to the clipboard. So let's go ahead and hit enter, master password. Let me go ahead and enter the master password. And it says password copied to clipboard. So if I just paste it, okay, there you go. That is indeed the password for my TechRaj website that I mean, not the actual password, but the sample password that I have added. And it works. It works. Okay, so obviously I'll upload all this code to GitHub, to my GitHub. So if you want to check this code for yourself, or if you want to install it and run it in your computer, then you can check out the link in the description. Like, my brain lagged there for a second, but anyway, you can check the link in the description for the GitHub repository link, and you can just basically clone it. And I'll also make sure to include all the instructions to actually install this, because in order to get this to working, you obviously need a MySQL database, and you have to create a user and all that stuff. So I will write a README file specifying all the instructions in order to install this program. So if you want to try it out, definitely check it out. The link is in the description below. Give it a try. Make improvements as you want, customize it as you want. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching. I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned something new. If you did like this video, do not forget to leave a thumbs up below, and also leave a comment down in the comment section below. I love reading your comments. So that's it. If you're not yet a subscriber to my channel, please do hit that subscribe button, and also turn on the bell icon to receive instant updates from my channel. So I'll see you in the next video. Until then, cheers.